I just made my client $40,000 selling his property. I'm gonna share with you exactly how we got that amount of money. Stay tuned. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. If you don't know who I am, my name is Aram. I am a real estate agent and investor here in the Chicagoland area, and I've come to you twice a week with some type of valuable content about investing, about being a real estate agent, the industry as a whole, along with the vlog, just to show you and document the entire journey, which has been documented for 3 years now. So you can go back and see me without a nice watch and then just see how we built all the way up to it. I think it's fascinating. That being said, if you enjoy the content, I need you to do this for me, folks. I need a subscription, subscribe to the channel. I need you to like the video for the algorithm. And of course, leave a comment, your thoughts, feedback, concerns. What I'm gonna share with you is basically, I'm going to explain, number one, how I got this specific client and how we got to the finish line. Because when I said I made my client $40,000 in the intro, I meant that. Without me, my expertise, my experience, and my know-how how to maneuver situations, we would have never made that much money, point blank, period, and definitely not in that short amount of time. So I want to share my experience with this sale, this transaction, and I think by learning how I dealt with the problems and what problems can come up, and how buyers think and the psychology, all that, I think it's gonna help you guys, the real estate agents out there, be better realtors, and the investors out there to understand, okay, this is what the individual did, this is how he made money, this is what I wanna do with my investing career. Let's start the story from where I first got the client. It was about a year ago, and my client calls me and says, hey, I found you on Google, and I just bought this 3-unit, and I need to rent one of the units. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath. I'm thinking around $1,700. Can you do this for me? I said, absolutely. And I'm just gonna keep this part short. Let's say within a week or two from that conversation, he had a fantastic tenant living in his building, and he enjoyed working with me. He enjoyed the communication, and everything was very pleasant, and I delivered results as promised. So he enjoyed that, even though he bought the building without me. He bought the building with another agent, and obviously the agent maybe didn't do rentals or whatever. So the lesson in this is to be versatile, right? Be able to do multiple things, because his old agent probably didn't want to deal with the rental, didn't want to do a rental, didn't know how to do a rental. He comes to me and realizes, oh wow, experience on this side is so much better. I like working with this individual more than the other one. So a year later, when he's ready to sell or he's thinking about selling, he gives me a call. Hey Aram, I'm thinking about selling my building. I totally enjoy working with you. You seem like a professional and you know what you're talking about. I want you to list it. We never had a listing president. That was the conversation. I said, perfect. Let me see what your place is worth and we'll go from there. I run my analysis and I come to the conclusion that his building is worth somewhere in the realm of $480,000 if I'm looking at comps, right? If I'm looking at reasonable comps, I'm thinking 480, maybe 490 if we're pushing it. Then I looked at how much he bought it for just a year ago with an FHA loan, and I realized if I sell it for what it's worth, he's not gonna make any money. He maybe might make $15,000, $20,000, which is not that much. If he just kept it in the course of 2 years, he'll get the cash flow and still own the asset. So it didn't make sense for him to sell at that price. So here's what I did. I gave him a call. I said, sir, it makes no sense for us to sell at 480, but that's what your building is worth. I think you should list it for 499. It may not sell. It may sit on the market, or, best case scenario, we will end up getting enough traffic and we'll get multiple offers and we'll get some type of an offer accepted. Do you want to go that route? This is important. I always give my clients options and I'm very upfront with them, right? Look, we're gonna be overpricing your property, but it doesn't make sense for you to sell if we don't overprice it. Is this something you want? Here are the consequences of it being overpriced. It may sit on the market and never sell. You okay with that? He was okay with that. Now, the next conversation I had, and this is very important as real estate agents, you have to set the proper expectations. I said, look, since we are, going to be selling more, our asking price is higher than any other comp in the area, I can already tell you whatever we sell for, your building is not going to appraise. And we can only sell for asking price or higher, so I know for a fact we're going to have appraisal issues. And I want you to know that when that time comes, we have to be flexible with the next buyer depending on the price that we have. So we're gonna make sure that we address that when we are accepting an offer to see who are we accepting an offer from. Does that make sense? He was like, perfect. So we get on the market and I advertise as this great investment property. I share the cash flow and I look at the projected rents. Listen, I work with investors. I know exactly how to present a great investment property. And won't you know it, we end up getting multiple offers. We got 3 offers to be exact. One I didn't waste any time with. The other 2 were really good. One was 511 and one was 505. I went with the 511 because he was putting 20% down and I knew it was not going to appraise, and I wanted to have somebody who I knew had the reserves, so if I had to negotiate up, I knew he had the money. So I went with the 511. They scheduled their inspection. It was a couple days later, and the whole time I could really tell, when you've been selling real estate long enough, you start getting the sixth sense that, hey, this buyer is really unsure about the deal. They were asking me for a whole bunch of reports, a whole bunch of questions, every minute detail about the property. I'm like, this investor's in over his head and is probably gonna bail. And I had that feeling. So I had already reached out to that second buyer and said, hey, our buyer might back out. Do you have any interest in the property? They said yes. So I knew that in the cut. So well, lo and behold, Thursday shows up, they do their inspection, they're like, we wanna back out of the deal. Surprise, surprise. It's okay, no worries, I'm prepared. We end up going with the 505. The second offer for $505,000 was FHA. So obviously there was a concern going in that when the appraisal didn't come in, we're gonna have some issues. They scheduled their inspection as routine, and after the inspection, the buyer asked for $28,000 in closing cost credits. Blew me away. And this is where finessing comes in handy. I knew for a fact that we could not give him $28,000. That we have the negotiating leverage that we are willing to walk away. And I also asked them exactly, why do you want $28,000? And they gave me the reasons, so that way I knew exactly what to justify with. And this is where, as a real estate agent, you have to be very careful not to get into an argument with the other agent, but almost just to present your perspective, your take, and your position, and leave it at that. Don't tell them they're wrong, don't tell them they're crazy, none of that stuff. So I see all the things that they have. I'm like, you know what? Here's, in my perspective, these are the repairs, and we're just not in a position to, pay for those repairs, yada, yada. Long story short, I got that $28,000 down to $2,000, but I did it in a different way. Instead of going back to them and negotiating back and forth, I got an email the day of their inspection, before the repair requests were put in, about someone asking me, hey, how is the buyer doing? Because I have a cash buyer interested in this property, would be willing to move quickly. So instead of saying, yeah, everything's going well, I said, you know what? You never know. Please go show it and give me an offer, and I'll definitely present it. Well, won't you know, I get an offer for $480,000, and that's way too low. And I'm able to negotiate them up to $497,000. So now I don't even have to negotiate. They're at 505 with FHA financing. I got a cash buyer for $497. So I have not put my client in the best possible negotiating position, so we can negotiate from a point of leverage and strength. And that is actually when we went with our very, very first counter. And we said no. Our first counter was like, you know what? This is too much money. And at this time, we are not comfortable giving you $28,000. Please respond with something more reasonable. And that's what gave me the time to go get the other offer, let them see the property, give me the 480, counter it for 500 grand, and get them to that 499 mark. The buyer's counter with 15,000, and then we had to give them a little nugget. And I talked to my client. I said, look, if we give them $2,000, I think they'll say yes. We gave them $2,000, and they said yes. So I was like, hallelujah. So as I'm concerned, it's an extra $4,000 compared to the cash buyer, because the cash buyer was at $499, not $497. Okay, so I apologize about the mix-up. So I'm like, okay, for $4,000 extra, it's worth the headache, and we already passed the inspection. The rest is financing. Shouldn't be that difficult. The property should be fine. Woo-wee, was I wrong. So let's start with the appraisal. The appraiser was just not the brightest person in the world. First and foremost, he went to the property and he couldn't find the keys. And the keys were in such an obvious place. But instead of being upset or having an attitude, I was very respectful. I was very pleasant. I was very cooperative. I ran over there, figured out the keys, put it in a much easier place to find, so he could come and do the rest of his job. In real estate, the lesson here is you have to be cooperate. You want the appraiser to want to help you if anything goes wrong. And I want you to remember that. When the appraiser called me, asked me for help, trying to figure out how to get into the building, I was very cooperative, very pleasant, very respectful, and I didn't have an attitude. That is very important. Remember that. So fast forward, we find out, surprise, it didn't appraise. The property appraised for $497,000 because the nearest comp that was asking $480 when we went under contract actually closed at $497, and that's what the appraiser said the price was going to be. And remember, before I even listed the home, I told my client we are going to have appraisal issues, but we cannot sell for less than $499, otherwise you're losing too much money. So the buyers, as routine, called me asking me to lower the price to $497, and on the phone call I said, look, I got a cash buyer at asking price, ready to go, and I'm not going to lower the price anything less than $499 and deal with the FHA financing. I'd rather just go with the cash and be done in a week or two. They're like, you know what? No problem. And furthermore, I said, I wanted $499, no closing cost credits. Remember that $2,000 we gave you for the inspection? I want that back. And I want $499, so $2,000 over the appraised value, which is our full asking price. I got it. So boom, we got that. All because I put myself in a really strong negotiating position, and I knew for a fact this buyer was not gonna go 30 days into the process, pay for an inspection, pay for an appraisal, to let $2,000 get in the way between her and her building. So I knew I had it in the bag. What I didn't know is this beautiful thing called a self-sufficiency calculation whenever you're trying to get an FHA loan on a multifamily property. And the calculation is, I always mess this up, but the mortgage cannot exceed 75% of the gross rents. So if your gross rent is $4,000 a month, your mortgage payment, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance cannot exceed $3,000 a month. That's 75%. So you need to be below that threshold to prove that, hey, this building can support itself. That's a very, very important calculation. And the appraiser put the rents way too low. And you know, I'm a listing agent, so I usually don't get involved in that side of the process, as that is the buyer's job to do. And the buyer's agent said, hey, you know, we're working on it. It shouldn't be an issue. I'm going to send some updated comps. Everything should be fine. Then a week passes. They send the updated comps. However, it's ghost time. I'm not getting any responses. Something ain't right. So I reach out to them. They're like, you know what? The appraiser's not being very cooperative. That's when I said, you know what? Buyer's agent, don't worry about it. I'm going to take over. We're going to get the problem solved. How much more money do I need to convince them that the rentals could get? And they told me $100. I said, no problem, because I'm renting my 3-unit for $1,700. And literally the building next to us had a 3-bed, 1-bath, rented for $1,800. I'm like, well, there's your $100. All I have to do is send the comp and explain how, you know, ours is going to be $100 more and we have it rented below market, yada, yada, yada. Problem solved. The appraiser responds saying, I already actually got that at $1,800, but the numbers still don't match up because he had the other one at 17 and the other one at like 925. Basically, I went into my explanation without having the right information. I thought, oh, all I have to do is explain this $1,800 lease and I'll be okay. But the appraiser actually responded not with just, you know, saying that he already appraised at that amount. He responded with comps that were blatantly went against the price that I was trying to get. They had a 3-bed, 1.5-bath renting for $1,600. And they had 2 of those, and one was like really nicely remodeled. And I was like, okay, I could see how he's probably looking at that and saying, wow, I can't even justify $1,700, but I'm gonna be kind and say 17 and 18, and then 925 for the garden unit. I'm like, okay. I called, this is when you gotta do a lot of phone calls behind the scenes. I called the lender, I'm like, okay, I need to know exactly what he put each unit as for rents, and exactly, I need to the dollar figure how much more I need to get you. And they told me we need $72 more. I said, no problem, I'll take it from here, chief. So I said, the only way I'm going to convince this appraiser that the value of the rents that he has are incorrect is to use his own comps against them. So I did the deepest analysis you could possibly imagine on the 3 comps he used to justify how my $1,700 unit was not worth 18, because he had one at 18, one at 17, and one at 925. And I looked at the history of that rental, and I found out that in 2019, they rented this for $1,600. And in 2022, they rented it for $1,650. And my breakdown was, look, in the past 3 years has been the largest increase in rents in history. So if they were able to rent for $1,600 in 2019, I can assure you it's worth way more than $1,800 today. That seller simply chose to rent below market. An adjustment needs to be made for that individual. Another one, I explained how the location was not as desirable and it wasn't really as updated as they think, and other small little factors that went into it, right? They didn't really have any parking available and they're right by a train track, all that. Furthermore, I said, you know what? So I can get about 50 to 100 bucks there, but I want to play this safe. Then I went down to my garden unit. I said, look, the garden unit has been at a $925 rent for the last 3 years without a single increase. Then I looked at the history of the area within a 1-mile radius to see what has been the lowest property that's been rented in the last year in that 1-mile radius of our property. And the lowest was $999. It was a garden unit, however, it's a 2-bedroom. So then I explained to him, I said, look, Our garden unit is a $925. In the last year, the lowest priced unit has rented for $999, and I think it's very easily to assume that if we just raise the rent $25 or $50 in the last 3 years, we would be at that $975 and we wouldn't have any issues. And if you actively look on the market, within a 3-mile radius, there's still nothing available for less than $1,000 a month, whether it's a 1-bedroom garden unit or not a garden unit. Long story short, appraisal agreed with my point. We got the values back up and the loan was cleared. Then we had a village inspection, which I had to maneuver through very beautifully, and I did, and we got the village inspection passed. Shout out to that inspector. He didn't take his job too seriously. He didn't look too much, and I was very friendly with him. I was there, I was present, I was on time, respectful, so they didn't want to be an asshole to me as I was not an asshole to them. So all that was done. We get to the closing table, we sign the paperwork, and my client receives a check for $39,000 and some change, plus another $3,000 he has in his escrow account, and poof! Within a year, he made over $40,000 on a property he bought FHA with 3.5% down. I think he put like 20 grand into it, and he took his 20 grand back plus $40,000. That's 3 times his investments. It's insane, right? And once you help a client make that kind of money once, they'll be your client forever, and they'll be your client forever with that money you made them that they're ready to invest. And I wanted to make this video because I wanted to explain all the intricate parts that go into putting a deal together. Oftentimes, consumers and some of the new real estate agents don't really know all these conversations I have behind the scenes, all the research I have to do behind the scenes, all the finessing, all the right maneuvers you have to know how to do behind the scenes to get to the finish line. All my client knew is that we are closing on set date. What happened in between, he was not privy to, okay? Because that's none of his business. That's my business, my job, that's my responsibility. And this is how I have such great clients who trust me and are loyal to me, right? And that's what you need to do as a real estate agent. You have to, like, if something goes wrong, you got to take control and figure out how am I going to get to a solution. Over time, when you have more experience, you'll know, okay, I did that, didn't work for this deal. Okay, I'm going to try this for this deal. Oh, that worked. That's how we're going to do it. And every deal is different. And that's what makes it fun. These are the deals you remember, okay? So that being said, if you enjoyed this, tell me the favorite part about this story. Leave it in the comments. I'm very proud of this closing, very, very proud. So leave that in the comments. And as always, if you want one-on-one time with me, you have 2 options. You can pay me $150 for an hourly coaching call. Link is in the description. Or you could be smart and join the Patreon, where every single Thursday, 10 a.m. Central, for $10 a month, you get to have an hour of my time. Now, it's a group setting. You don't get to, it's not a one-on-one conversation, but you are live on a Zoom call with me. Ask me anything you like for $10 a month. Not a better deal on the internet. So go ahead and click that, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.